Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and today's video is going to have spoilers in it from episode 6 of The Acolyte. When The Acolyte came out, some critics were able to see the show a little earlier than everyone else, and some people said that the show would be reminiscent of The Fugitive. That's the film where Harrison Ford is framed for the murder of his wife, and Tommy Lee Jones plays a no-nonsense U.S. Marshal chasing him. This movie was actually heavily referenced during the Jedi Temple incidents during the Clone Wars when Ahsoka gets framed for the bombing of the Jedi Temple and has to stay on the run while trying to prove her innocence. Dave Filoni actually does a scene-for-scene recreation of that famous tunnel chase scene, and Leslie Headland also pays homage to that scene, although she gives us a nice little twist at the end. And ever since that twist, well, The Acolyte doesn't really follow in the footsteps of the Fugitive story that much. We find out relatively quickly that Osha, the individual being blamed for murder in this TV series, is not the murderer. As a matter of fact, she actually teams up with the U.S. Marshals, Jedi, that are chasing the actual suspect, which is her sister. But you know what? Ever since episode 6, I feel like the show's looking a lot more like The Fugitive, except this time around it's not Osha who's playing the Harrison Ford character, it's Master Soul. We all saw what happened on Kofar. We know that Master Soul tried his best to defeat Chimera in those duels. He tried his best to protect Osha and May, and although he kind of ventures to the dark side, which honestly is understandable because that was a brutal fight, Master Soul didn't really do anything purposely wrong. You could say in the after-action report that some mistakes were made by the commander of the Force. Why did Chimera and all the Jedi bum rush Chimera all at the same time when they could have easily just restrained them at the beginning of the fight? But Soul didn't do anything egregious, like he wasn't the one who murdered all those Jedi. But here's the thing, in episode 6, he tries to communicate with the Jedi Temple, and his message doesn't really get through very clearly at all. The comms seem to be blocked by either a jammer or more likely some type of celestial event. Khofar actually lies in an uncharted part of the galaxy. And so the result is not much information gets back to Central Command from Soul.
What is it, Mog?
We received a distress call from Master Soul. Apparently he's on a mission in the Outer Rim.
What did he say?
There were casualties.
Who?
The connection was faulty, but it sounded like the entire team.
So the Jedi are aware of a mass casualty event. They're also aware that Master Soul is alive, but beyond that, they don't really know what else happened. Vanessa Rwo and our assistant, whose name, by the way, is Mog, which I feel like is more fitting for a Gamorrean, or maybe like a rock. They travel to Kofar with a small Jedi team to investigate what happened. While walking through the remains of the battlefield, we hear echoes of the battle in the Force itself. I actually started thinking maybe like Mog and Vanessa Rwo have what's known as psychometry. This is I guess it's a rare force power. I don't know how rare it is now. In Legends it used to be more rare, but basically individuals with this power can touch or feel things and then see its past, kind of. Quinlan Vos used to use this technique quite a lot, and it was very helpful because he was kind of like a vice cop in the Jedi Order. He worked a lot with the underground gangs and stuff like that. So yeah, psychometry is a very useful tool if you're trying to investigate a crime scene or trying to figure out what those stains on your hotel mattress are. Gross. It's also possible that the fight that happened on Kofar was so horrific that echoes in the Force still remain here for the Jedi to hear. I remember in Legends, Princess Leia travels to Endor like years after the Battle of Endor, and she could still feel the cold and angry, hateful presence of Emperor Palpatine. Now, while these Jedi are poking around all the dead bodies, Vanessa Rwo strikes up a conversation with Mog. I don't actually know if Mog is Vanessa's Padawan or if he's just like a secretary, kind of assistant figure, but Vanessa starts using a classic Jedi Master technique where she basically asks questions to her Padawan in order to kind of test his mind, that kind of stuff.
What do you see?
An explosion, then a battle. One versus many. His power extraordinary, his skills erratic.
They were all killed by a lightsaber. What does that tell you?
A powerful Jedi has fallen. You don't think Master Soul was responsible?
That is quite the accusation.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. The one thing the Acolyte does quite well is it presents you with many options on how things can unfold and twist, like any good murder mystery will. For instance, we knew that Khofar might be the Dark Master, but there was also a chance that the Zabrak mother was a potential candidate. There are strong clues pointing at both individuals being the Dark Master, and what's really cool about this is none of this stuff comes from the deep lore. You didn't need to know the legends or expanded universe to figure out these kind of twists, because that kind of twist is a little bit lazy. Like, every TV show should be relatively self-contained. I know that might be surprising to hear from me because I do a lot of lore stuff, but yeah, I mean, that's, if you really want to judge a TV show based on its own merits, that's how you should do things. Murder mystery should have all the clues within the show itself for you to figure out what's happening. And that's what the Acolyte does well. Some might even say that it's a little too obvious, but I don't know. In hindsight, things always look a little obvious, right? I said after watching episode 1 that Khofar was the Dark Master, and then episode 4, I kind of retracted that statement, or half retracted it. I basically thought that maybe the Zabrak was still behind this somehow, maybe using Khofar as a puppet as the Dark Master. So yeah, like, this writing did keep me on my toes. The Acolyte wants you to think about these kind of things. And this scene is crafted also to make us think that Vernestra Rwoh might be trying to do something fishy. When you want to convince someone to do something, never try to convince them directly or put pressure on them. Instead, try to lead the individual you're trying to convince to come to the conclusion you want them to by directing their thinking in a general direction. You could also knock them out with, like, sleeping pills and then use that machine from Inception to go into their dreams and implant those ideas so that they believe that they came up with those ideas themselves. Very similar concept. But yeah, Vanessa Rwo just tries to direct Mog's thinking here with this question.
They were all killed by a lightsaber. What does that tell you?
A powerful Jedi has fallen. You don't think Master Soul was responsible?
That is quite the accusation.
And yeah, he comes to the conclusion that Vanessa Rwo wants him to come to. That Master Soul is responsible for killing all these Jedi. I mean, she even expresses what I think is false outrage here at the idea. This is to alleviate any suspicion that this is what she wants Mog to think.
You don't think Master Soul was responsible?
That is quite the accusation.
Who else would possess the power to slay such a strong group?
Something to tip the scales.
Notice how she whispers to herself when she talks about the scales tipping. This is so that Mog can't hear, and so Mog can continue to theorize about whether Master Soul has done this or not. He's already going through, the paces.
But if he did this, why would he send us a distress signal?
It's time to get back to the ship. We should prepare these bodies for burial.
Judging by how Vanessa Rwo has interacted with Mog prior to this, I don't think she really respects him that much, and probably thinks he's kind of an idiot. Someone who's easy to control, someone who's easy to manipulate into spreading rumors or just this idea that Master Soul murdered his entire strike team by going to the dark side. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but Master Soul is a freaking wreck after episode 5. He's lost his entire team. He went over to the dark side for a short second while bashing Khofar's face in for Gordon Jeky's death. The calm composure of Master Soul, which we always suspected was a cover, has finally disappeared, and we see revealed the emotional Jedi that he truly is. He's slamming tables. He's hugging a person that he thinks is Osha.
You saved us, Osha.
He even starts promising Osha/May that he'll finally reveal what happened on Brendock all those years earlier. Something that Khofar seems to know a lot about for some reason, and perhaps the main reason why Soul goes dark on Brendock in the first place. Khofar kind of just knows how to push his buttons. I mean, the fact that Soul can't tell that May is on his ship and not Osha shows us just how clouded his head is with emotions. He can't even figure these very basic things out. One gets a sense that while Khofar has become increasingly calm after the battle on Kofar, Master Soul is quickly losing his shit and about to do something very stupid. I mean, after he figures out that May's on the ship and not Osha, he basically stuns her. But instead of going back to the comms and trying to send out this message to the Jedi Order again,
please, comms and run it.
There is a much larger threat than we anticipated. Osha.
Instead of letting the Jedi Order know what happened and that Khofar killed everyone and that he's innocent, he wants to tell May what occurred that night on Brendock. Anyway, he wants his conscience to be clear. He's not thinking clear. His emotions have taken control of everything. And by doing this, he leaves himself extremely vulnerable. Because right now, no one knows what's happened on Kofar. Now, the next episode, episode 7, is directed by Kogonada, who directed episode 3, which was the last flashback, so we're probably going to see in episode 7 Soul's view of what happened on Brundok in a flashback, and who is finally responsible for the fire and the death of all those witches. In a lot of ways, this episode is going to make or break the show, I think, because so much of the story relies on the unreliable narrator and this mystery story. And at the end of the flashback, at the end of episode 7, we'll begin the end of the first season, which I'm sure will be some big showdown. This will lead to episode 8, which will be directed by Hannah Culpepper. She's the one who directed episode 6, so I'm guessing we'll revert back to real time by this point. I believe something terrible is going to happen to Soul and May's ship. The power's going on and off, the comms are messed up, and based on the trailers, along with this tidbit from Mog earlier...
But Master, I'm sure that these casualties are due to the planet's uncharted environment.
I need to handle this personally.
He's talking about Khofar being uncharted. I think it's very possible that some kind of fast-moving celestial event is blocking comms and might affect the ship as well. Something like a comet and its debris trail. Now, if Master Soul were thinking clearly, he probably would have noticed this. He would have been in the bridge, but no, he's doing story time with May. You know, Master Soul is being portrayed as a flawed individual, but ultimately he is a good man, I believe that. Like, watch him eat a bunch of children in episode 7 and prove me wrong. But no, seriously, he's shown that he cares for Osha and May, and he's tried to save both of them many times. And I think whatever role he took in the Brundok fire, when explained, will paint him in a bad light, but not completely make him irredeemable. I feel like the Jedi aren't exactly evil in the show. They're definitely not the bad guys in the prequels. I think a lot of people think that because I criticize the Jedi Order, that I consider them evil, but no, like, I think they're a very flawed organization, a very tragic organization, but evil, no. Master Soul is clearly a tortured individual, and he deserves peace, like the other Jedi from Brundok. And I think he'll find his redemption at the end of the first season of The Acolyte by basically sacrificing himself in some way, maybe to save May, or save other people. I don't know if Master Soul gets to live. It really depends on what he does in episode 7, right? But yeah, like Master Turbine, I feel like Master Soul will accept responsibility for his actions willingly and face death if necessary. And this really does leave Master Soul in the perfect situation to become the scapegoat for this entire massacre on Kofar for Vanessa Rwo. And May can obviously be blamed for the murders of the Jedi who were originally stationed on Brundok. And this basically allows Vanessa Rwo to continue doing whatever she's doing. In a lot of ways, I think they're setting her up to be the second antagonist in a way. I feel like with Master Soul dead, Vanessa Rwo will feel less guilty about pinning the blame of these attacks on him. Now, Master Soul was very loyal to her, and I don't think Rwo is completely evil either, but I feel like she has been in the Jedi Order for way too long. She's like 116 years old. And like a lot of the older Jedi during the prequel era, she's just become a political monster and lost her way. She's no longer really connected or in tune with the Force. And even though pinning the Kofar massacre on someone like Master Soul will do a lot of damage to the Jedi Order's image and generate fear that more Jedi can turn to the dark side, I think Master Rwo is trying to cover up something even bigger that she directly is a part of. I think she somehow knows about Khmer and is somehow related to him. I mean, there's a huge red flag during this mission to Khofar where she basically kind of says this one line.
Something to tip the scales.
Our theory is that Vanessa Rwo knows Khmer directly. I mean, we took a look at the scars on his back. It kind of looks like a lightsaber whip pattern scar. Khmer also says that he was a Jedi a very long time ago, and Vanessa Rwo has been a Jedi for 116 years. I'm not saying that Vanessa Rwo is a Sith or anything like that, but she definitely could have been Khmer's Jedi Master before he left the Order. And perhaps she did something really messed up to force him out. Perhaps she's trying to cover up something related to him. This is also why I feel like she recognizes May's movements in her little secret meeting at the Jedi Temple with all those people who's working for her. I feel like there's really not enough time to explore everything that's happened in the show so far. Like, certain threads will be closed, like Master Soul's story might come to an end pretty soon. But May and Osha's story, I feel like that could diverge into a different direction because it doesn't necessarily have to, like, they don't necessarily have to stay with the Jedi Order at all. They could just go off and do their own things. I think they might be better off because May and Osha, they should love each other. They're sisters. They shouldn't be involved in this dark side, light side thing, in my opinion. But Vernestra Rwoh, her story intrigues me, and I feel like if there is a second season, it should be based on whatever the hell she did to Khmer, right? That's what's interesting in The Acolyte. But I feel like we'll probably not get a second season because the culture wars have really gotten inundated with the Acolytes. The show's not over, so we can't judge it completely, but I feel like it's much better than Kenobi and Boba Fett. Probably better than Ahsoka up until now. I mean, it's just a lot more professionally written. It's a much better, tighter story. There's a lot less, like, kind of callbacks to the lore, which I appreciate. They're doing something new and fresh. But yeah, like, people really hate the show for all sorts of wild reasons. Like, I saw this one comment where a guy wrote that he believes that China is paying Disney to destroy the Jedi, which in turn will destroy American culture, or something like that. And, like, look, if you find that comment, don't hate that guy. He's really not a part of the problem. Like, I almost feel bad for people who, like, think of stuff like that, because, you know, the ironic thing is, like, there are Russian trolls in Chinese 50 centers, that's what they're called, and they are actually fueling the culture war, and the result is exactly stuff like this. Instead of people being focused on the policy of political leaders in the upcoming election, they're focusing on fighting a culture war on Star Wars, which is just the most ridiculous thing, guys. Come on. And again, if you have real critiques against the show, if you don't like the Acolyte, I get you. I'm not talking about you. I feel like there's always legitimate criticism, but you look at the Acolyte's reception, like the 14% review rating or 13%, whatever it is, it's completely unjustified. You know, I've always said it deserves. Most Disney shows are at least at a 50. They're not that freaking bad. Like, I mean, you could take a look at the Christmas special, for instance, or the Caravan of Courage. Although I heard that. I never watched that show, I'll be honest with you, but I heard it was pretty good. But then again, I was really worried that Andor would never get viewed properly. And, you know, like a year later, you have a lot of YouTubers finally talking about how amazing Andor is, which is great, because I feel like this is a show that deserves a lot of attention. I want Disney to see that fans like this kind of stuff, adult, you know, serious Star Wars content that takes the viewers very seriously. I know people don't like a lot of the dialogue in The Acolyte, but, you know, in my opinion, I feel like it's a much better written show than a lot of the other, unfortunately, Dave Filoni stuff. Like, Dave Filoni is, in a lot of ways, too much of a fan of Star Wars, and I think that hurts the franchise, because although he has moments of brilliance, he really leans on the lore a little too much, in my opinion. And, like, that stuff is still great. You know, I love covering it. The Mandalorian is awesome, but I think that's more because of Jon Favreau than Dave Filoni. But yeah, like, seeing a show like The Acolyte bomb kind of sucks, because this is one of the first shows since Andor, really, that's tried something very different, risky. It's a show that doesn't have legendary or legacy characters. It has original characters. So, you know, I respect the show for trying. I want to wait until the end of the show to actually rate it, but I really do appreciate how the Acolyte is expanding the lore. I mean, if you're a prequel fan, like, I really don't understand the prequel fans who say that this show goes against the lore and that, like, Leslie Headland doesn't respect this period of time and the writers don't understand what's going on, because I feel like that's either disingenuous or people don't actually understand the prequels enough. The prequels were a criticism of the Jedi. The Jedi weren't the bad guys, but the flaws that the good guys had made them fail. I mean, the Sith win in the prequels, right, guys? If the Jedi were just this great organization that had no problems, then the Clone Wars would have ended with the defeat of Palpatine. Like, I don't understand why people don't understand this. What the Acolyte shows us is something that all prequel fans have always questioned, and that is, how did the Jedi Order become the way they were by the Clone Wars? How could they have gotten so blind and arrogant that they would let someone like Palpatine take over the government and basically hold meetings with them on a daily basis? It's stories like this that really fills in the gap and explains how we have Jedi like Ki-Adi-Mundi and Mace Windu, because we see a lot of those same problems in people like Vernestra Rwoh. Except, at least during the High Republic period, Vanessa Rwo is now on the High Council, but Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi are on the High Council. But anyway, you know, I think all of the Jedi in the Acolytes are tragic figures. Individuals like Yorn and Jeki are definitely heroes. But the whole point is the order they joined failed them because of their arrogance and comfort with being in this position of power, something the Jedi should have never accepted in the first place. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And let me know in the comments, like, what do you guys think about this theory? I think I've gotten pretty close to this. I mean, this show has been kind of easy to predict, but I also feel like I've been looking really closely at this show at the same time, because This is like a murder mystery. This is what you're supposed to do. This is why these kind of shows are fun. And like, I also understand why they release this on a week-by-week basis. Although, like, I can see how a lot of critics and fans jumped the gun on rating the show because some parts were really slow. But I feel like if there wasn't all this crazy culture war backlash, if there wasn't like a year of ongoing culture war fighting leading up to the show, you know, I feel like the weekly releases would not have been a problem, and it would have been really fun for me and the other YouTube channels to be like making theories about what's happening. But instead, like where are the other channels now? It's kind of sad. Like, it used to be a lot of fun. But yeah. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. My name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.